Hi guys, I'm just going to go over a couple of examples with you on these special right triangles. So now that you've watched the videos and you've got your pink sheet, you can fill in the patterns on your pink sheet. So the first triangle that you've got on there is the 45, 45, 90 triangle. And so the pattern for that is if this side is X, then this side is going to be X because it's an isosceles triangle, so those are always the same for a 45, 45, 90. Your hypotenuse side is always X times the square root of 2. So that's the 45, 45, 90 triangle. And then if we go down a little bit further here, we've got our 30, 60, 90 triangle. And then we've got the same kind of pattern here. It's different, but there is still a pattern when you've got a 30 degree, 60 degree, 90 degree triangle. So the pattern for this one is across from your 30 degree angle, we'll call that X. Across from the 60 degree angle, we call that X times the square root of 3. So this triangle uses square root of 3. 45, 45, 90 uses the square root of 2. And then the hypotenuse is always 2 times X. So with either of these triangles, if we can figure out what X is, we've got a nice shortcut to figuring out the lengths of these sides where we can find an exact length instead of using trig where we get an approximate length because we are rounding. So how do we use these? I'm going to move on down here and I'm going to go through this left column with you. So starting with number 1. The first thing we want to do is probably, at least starting out, label the sides using the patterns that are in those triangles on your pink sheet. So this looks like it's a 30, 60, 90 degree triangle in number 1. So across from our 30 degree angle, which is labeled, this is going to be our X side. And then the 60 degree angle is going to be up here. So across from that, that's going to be our X square root of 3 side. And then our hypotenuse is going to be the 2X side. So you have to look at which side do I actually have a number on. That's going to be this one right here. So to figure out what X is, I'm going to take 2X and set it equal to 10 and just solve. So if I divide both sides by 2, then I'm going to have X equals 5. So now I can take that 5 and just fill in right here and fill in right here, and then I'll have the lengths of those sides right away. So X is going to be, that's just the X side, so that's going to be 5. And then Y, that's this one down here on the bottom, I'm just going to fill in the 5 for the X, so the length of that is going to be 5 square root of 3. So that takes care of that one. If we move on down to number 3, it looks like we've got another 30, 60, 90 triangle. So again, labeling the sides. Across from the 30 degree angle, excuse me, is going to be our X side. And then it looks like this is our 60 degree one up here because our right angle is already marked. Across from that is going to be our X square root of 3 side. And then our hypotenuse is going to be our 2X side. The side that is labeled with a number already is this one right here. So if we take X square root of 3 and set it equal to 7 square root of 3, we can already see we've got the square root of 3 on both sides, and then the X has to be equal to 7 in order to make these equal to each other. So you get the same result if you divide both sides by the square root of 3, you're going to get X equals 7. So just like in number 1, we can take that and we can plug it in here, we can plug it in here, and we'll get our side lengths. So the length of this one over here on the right of X is going to be 7. And then for Y, when we plug it in right here, we're going to have 2 times 7, which is going to be 14. So that's it. Moving on down, now we get to number 5 where we've got a 45, 45, 90 triangle. Excuse me, same idea here, except we're not using X square root of 3 and 2X. We're going to use X and X square root of 2. So look at your 45, 45, 90 triangle to figure out the patterns for the sides. Both of your legs are going to be X, so this is X, and then the hypotenuse is always X square root of 2. So we just need to figure out what X is. This is our labeled side over here, so it's pretty easy to see that X is equal to 8. So then that means we're going to plug in 8 right here, and we're going to plug in 8 right here. So then our x length down here is just going to be 8. And then when we plug it in on our y side over here, it's going to be 8 square root of 2. And that's it. The last problem down here, number 7, is a little more tricky. There's a little more work involved in this than square root work, which is why we did that square root work before. Same idea as before. We've got a 30, 60, 90 triangle here this time. We're going to go ahead and label our sides. So across from our 30-degree angle is the x side. Across from our 60-degree angle, which is this one here, is going to be our x square root of 3 side. And then our hypotenuse is our 2x side. So we look for the side that's labeled, that's this one right here. And this is going to take a little bit of work, a little bit of solving to figure out what x is. X square root of 3 equals 12. We need x by itself, so we're going to divide both sides by the square root of 3. So that cancels there, and we're left with x equals 12 divided by the square root of 3. We don't like a square root on the bottom, so we need to rationalize the denominator, multiply the top and bottom by the square root of 3. So when we do that, we get x equals 12 times the square root of 3 on top over the square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is the square root of 9, which is just 3. So that's what goes on the bottom. Now we want to make sure, last step, that we simplify this part. So x equals 4 square root of 3. So now we can take this and we can plug it in here and we can plug it in here to figure out what our side lengths are. So for the x side up here, it's going to be 2 times, x is 4 times the square root of 3, so 4 square root of 3. And we can multiply the 2 and the 4 to get 8 square root of 3. So that's that length of the x side up there, 8 square root of 3. And then the y side down here, that's just our x side, and our x is 4 square root of 3. So those are our answers there. Over here on the right-hand side, you've got some more practice with this. So just recognize first which kind of triangle are you working with, label your sides, and then figure out which side has an actual number so you can solve for your x value. When you move on to the next page, you've got 2 different columns of problems here. The left side is going to be your good old-fashioned SOHCAHTOA, sine, cosine, tangent. Looks like we've got some inverse trig on here, some regular trig, so that's what 1, 3, and 5 are. And then 2, 4, and 6 are going to be your 45, 45, 90 triangles and your 30, 60, 90 triangles, the shortcuts that are in this video and the videos that you already watched.